Hi everyone, and welcome to CTL's Education Professional Development Series. My name is Amy Alcalisi, EdTech Project Manager here at CTL, and I'm joined by Stephanie Shea, Marketing Manager, and Walter Germer, Technical Specialist. Most of you are familiar with CTL, but if you're not, we are headquartered in Portland, Oregon, providing innovative IT solutions to education and government customers for over 26 years. We're a Google for Education partner, specializing in rugged CTL Chromebooks, laptops, convertibles, 2-in-1s, and tablets designed specifically for K through 12. Over the last 3 years, we've worked with Google to introduce a line of CTL Chromebooks that have been recommended by PC Magazine as the best choice for Chromebooks in education. CTL offers free professional development webinars on a variety of topics relevant to K through 12 EdTech. Today's webinar, Advanced Google Classroom, is presented by Blanca Duarte of Logic Wing Professional Development and Technology Consulting, which most of you know her. She's super awesome. Before we get started, I'd like to review the attendee interface so you know how to participate in today's event. You should see something that looks like this on your own desk in the upper right-hand corner. You're listening in using your computer speaker system by default, but if you would prefer to join on the phone, just select the telephone in the audio pane, and the dial information will be displayed. You may type in any questions into the question pane of the control panel during the presentation, and they will be addressed in the question and answer session at the end of today's presentation. Now, Blanca may change that, and sometimes we split the presentations up and in the middle if she feels like she wants to take a break for questions as well. So before we begin, I'd like to take a couple polls to learn more about you. So please indicate if you're a teacher, coach, administrator, IT staff, or have another role in your school. We'll take a moment to give you a chance to fill them out. Let me switch that over. All right. All right. So it looks like maybe about a few more seconds. It's like 50%. Both 6 months to a year and 0 to 6 months. Can everybody see that? Let me open up the other poll. So that gives Blanca an idea. And this is just your role in your school. Teacher, administrator, coach, IT, or other. Gives us kind of an idea. All right, looks like 50% coach, 50% other. It's great. And all right, I think I will hide that. Hopefully you guys can't see that anymore. Thank you for giving us your input. All right, I want to remind everyone about some of our Nevada 21 educator resources. When you visit the nr21.ctl.net website, you can learn about upcoming professional learning opportunities, sign up for updates about upcoming events, join our Google Plus private community for Nevada 21 educators. That's where we post most of our information. So now I'd like to introduce you guys to Blanca Duarte of Logic Wing Professional Development. She's a Google Apps certified trainer, Intel Teach Elements online trainer, and an experienced educator in the public and private sector for over 25 years. She will take you through some of the more advanced features of Google Classroom. So welcome, Blanca, and I will switch screens over.
Thanks so much, Amy.
You're
welcome. All right. Well, welcome everybody.
All right.
Beautiful.
All right, I will pause myself.
Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
All right, everybody. I am going to show you a couple of advanced features in Google Classroom. I know that some of you have been using it for less than 6 months, so feel free when the time comes to ask questions, to ask some of the questions that you have about just the basics as well. So we're going to cover a couple different things. We're going to cover how to differentiate instruction using some of the features of Google Classroom, something that just came out. a couple weeks ago. We're also going to show you the extension Share to Classroom, and I'll actually demo how you can push web pages out to students and they can push web pages back to you. We'll talk a little bit about the mobile features because they're a little bit different than the desktop or the Chromebook feature. And I'll also take you through setting up Google Cast for your class. So we know that Google Classroom allows teachers to create announcements and assignments for students. In the past, you were only able to use something called topics. And topics, you were able to label your assignments. So I could label an assignment Unit 1 or Unit 2, or I could label it exit tickets. And it was an easy way for students to filter their assignments using a navigation on the left-hand side of the screen. However, that didn't really allow teachers to be able to differentiate. There was a workaround, and Google has now put in something called groups, so that you can actually just give assignments to one individual student, to give assignments to groups of students. Really great if you've got reading groups or math groups. And of course, you can share assignments to all students, and I'll show you how that works. What can you use it for? Well, you can use it to specifically address specific students in your class or groups of students, so you can assign different types of assignments or readings or special assignments, or you even have a way now to give students extra credit. And then when you go to grade them, you're only grading that one or that group of students instead of having to kind of pick and choose which students had which assignments. This is a screenshot, so I'll show you what that looks like in true demo format, but you can notice that now when you create an assignment, you can actually, you're asked first, is this assignment for the whole class or just for specific students, or maybe it's just for one student. All right, so I'm going to take you into Google Classroom. And let's see. Here we go. So this is my teacher class, and you can see my teacher dashboard has a lot of classes in it. I'm going to go to my trusty Mrs. Martini third grade classroom. And on the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see the nice plus sign. So I'm going to create an assignment. And when I create an assignment now, I can see this assignment is for Mrs. Martini's third grade class, all students, or I can select where it says all students, a little drop-down arrow, and just decide to give it to one student if I want. Okay, so I'll put in the title here, reading assignment. Okay, so let's say that this is a very bright child and she's already reading To Kill a Mockingbird, and I can assign her to read pages 1 to 3 and answer questions. Okay, and of course I have the due date. So due date is the same. You've got that ability, of course, because it's an assignment. And the nice thing is that you still have the ability to have a topic. So I can create a topic, and I can just call it chapter 1 if I want to. All right. So when I assign this, now only Heather, okay, has the assignment, and I don't see, 25 students here in the not done section. I actually only see one student has not finished it. All right. So it's pretty easy. You probably, if you've been using Google Classroom pretty regularly, you probably have already noticed it. The other thing I just want to point out, in case you are not familiar with it, again, just because I know some of you haven't been using it all that long, is you can create an assignment, and let's say that you have one Google class for 5 different periods, and it's basically the same class, and they basically get the same assignments. Just know that when you are creating assignments, you can actually create assignments for more than one class, right? So if you have period 1, period 2, period 3, period 4, 5, you can select them all. You can create the assignment, right? So read chapters. And then in that case, when you're selecting more than one class, you actually don't have the ability to select all students, because then you would have to actually look at a roster of 150 kids. So if you're using differentiation feature for grouping, you can only select you can only create one assignment per class. However, if you are not using that feature, you do have the ability to post to more than one class at a time. So I hope that's helpful. Let me bring you back to the presentation. Okay. So the next thing we're going to take a look at is something called Shared to Classroom. Now, Shared to Classroom, and it is an extension. If you are in the Chrome Web Store and you type in Google Classroom, you'll actually find several extensions. Some of them have been created by Google certified trainers or Google educators. The one I'm going to show you specifically is the one created by Google. All right, so the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to go to the Chrome Web Store. You're going to type in Share to Classroom, and you're going to add it as an extension, so you know those show up to the right of your Chrome browser bar. And this extension allows you to be on a page and actually push a page to students. You can also push assignments. You can also, at that point, not push the web page to students, but actually you can create a draft assignment from that page. So let me show you what that means. Okay, so I am back here as a teacher, and I am going to go to one of my favorite websites, BrainPop. Okay, so let's say that I am looking for a BrainPop activity about blogs. And if you haven't seen the blogs or the digital etiquette videos, they're super activities. I've actually used them with middle school students, and they're really a great age to kind of show BrainPop because they're kind of in that, yes, I like animation still, you know, and cartoons, but this is a lot of information in a really short, you know, kind of short little video clip, and I think it's super informative. So, so let's say that I'm in the middle of talking about online etiquette, and I want the kids to be able to view this short video about blogging because we're going to have a conversation about the use of YouTube, let's say, right? Video blogging. A lot of kids use that. So what I can do as a teacher is I can open up the page, right? So I've got a URL at the top, and instead of maybe copying the URL into my website or you know, putting it in a Google Doc or posting it in Google Classroom, I can actually go to my Share to Classroom app, which is right here on the top of my screen, top right-hand corner. And when I click it, okay, so it's connecting to my Google Classroom. It knows I have all of these different classes. Whoops. Okay. I'm actually able to select the class that I want to push the app to. So here I'm going to click on my third grade class again, and you can see that it says push to students. Now you can't see this on your end, but my students who are in the middle of working on a page, if I were to click on push right now, would actually have this page pop up on their screen. Okay, so I might want to give them a heads up, and before I use the Share to Classroom, I might say, okay, everybody, you know, open up a new tab. I'm going to push a website out to you. And when I click on push, okay, in this little section right underneath where I have the preview of BrainPop, it says that I have pushed BrainPop, the page, out to students. Okay, and I can always find that information while I'm working. I can also have students push a website to me. So how cool is that? We're in the middle of talking about blogging, and one of my students, who perhaps is repeating the class, and he already knows this, and I've given him some special assignment to go research some articles about blogging. Well, when they find something that they would like to share, they can actually open up a page that they want to share with me, and they can push it to me. So I'm just going to demo that. Give me 1 second. Okay, so it's necessary for both the teacher and the student to have the Share to Classroom extension, so that's important to know. And I am pushing it out from another computer. Alrighty. And it's just going to take a minute to load. Alrighty, so you see on the right hand side of my page, it says I have received, I was sent a page. Now on the bottom here, it says received from students. I can open that up and I can say, oh, look at that. The student, Bianca, found a transcript that might be helpful for some of you. And then I can now push that back out to students. So I can open up that link and push that back out to students. So now students have my Brain Pop video and they have some additional information. Okay, I'm going to stop there just to make sure that nobody has any questions about kind of this basic use of Share to Classroom before I show you the other things that Share to Classroom can do. Are there any questions, Amy?
The question that came in was, and you answered it, was does the student and the teacher need to download the extension? And you answered that one. So
Yes.
Can that be done? It probably could be done by beforehand. So once it's done, you would need to have it loaded, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you ask your Google Apps administrator to push out the Share to Classroom extension to both teachers and students, then both teachers and students will have the extensions already in their browser. And so anytime they're signed into Chrome, they'll have access.
That's awesome. That was where we were, so we're good.
Great, great. All right, so I'm going to show something else that you can do with the Share to Classroom, which folks might be interested in as well. So I'm going to look for Owly. Okay, this is like a URL shortener. And I'm just looking for another page. And it's loading. Let's see. Okay, so let's say that I am teaching my kids how to shorten their links, okay? Because perhaps I'm sending out a newsletter and I want the parents to be able to go to certain links to see and view student work, okay? And yes, people still use newsletters in paper format. So, but I don't want to have these long links of Google Documents or Google presentations. I want them to learn how to create a short link so that it's easier for people to type into a browser page. So I'm on this page, bit.ly, and I'm teaching my kids about, I want to create an assignment, right, to teach them about how to create a short link. I can actually click on the Share to Classroom extension, and instead of pushing the link to students, I can create an assignment. I can create a question, so ask a question, or I can actually just make an announcement. So let's say that I wanted to create an assignment with this bit.ly shortener, and I would just click on Create Assignment. Right from this page, without taking me back into Classroom, I can say, learning to create short links, and the instructions would be read about bit.ly and be ready to create tomorrow. Okay, and again, because it's an assignment, I can put a due date, I can put the time, I can put a due date and a topic. I notice that there isn't time anymore. And I can choose to assign it right at this second. But let's say that I'm planning, and it's the night before, and I'm planning an assignment for tomorrow, but I don't want students to be notified about it, or I don't want them to see it. I can actually schedule the assignment, or I can save it as a draft. Okay, so now this is huge, and I'll tell you why. Because a lot of times we have, a half hour of time somewhere in our day to plan, and we don't always want to be clicking tabs and opening tabs back and forth. And so using the Share to Classroom tab, you actually don't even have to be in your classroom. You can just be browsing the web, find some, a really good resource that you want to include as an assignment or an announcement, and then actually be able to post to your class without ever having to type in classroom.google.com and finding your class that way, etc. So I think this is a great extension, and I would highly recommend it. Okay, and just so you know, in addition to creating those assignments or pushing them out, if you're a teacher, a lot of times a teacher will have the classes that they're teaching, but they'll also have the classes that they're enrolled in. So so you actually can use it for either when you're a teacher or a student. All right. Any questions? Or I'll keep on going.
One question was when you started, you talked about groups
Mm-hmm.
instead of individuals. How were those created?
So when you create an assignment, and let me just go back into my class, okay? When you create an assignment, right, you're going to click on this icon on the bottom right-hand corner, the plus sign, and you're going to create an assignment. And at this point, you can actually either highlight all students or highlight individual students. I think what the person might be asking is, how do you create contact groups, perhaps? Because contact groups have been used in the past to share assignments with students. So I can go into my contacts, or contacts.google.com, and I can create a group, and I can call this my, third grade reading group. Okay, and in my third grade reading group, I can now, where are you? There you go. I can now invite students to be in this group. And I actually don't invite them, I just add them. Okay, so let's say I have 2 students in this group. And I've created a contact group called third grade reading group. When I create a contact group, I can then email them by just typing in third grade group. I can share, okay, so I'm in my email, right? So now I've got my third grade reading group here, automatically fills in the names of students. If I go into docs, okay, and I want to share a report, I can open up the document and I can share with a contact group, right? So I call this one third grade reading groups, okay? But those are different than, you can't use groups in Google Classroom. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to see my third grade reading group in my assignment.
I
I'm
think
just going to be able to individually.
you answered it perfect,
Yeah,
Blanca.
figured. Okay, great. Okay, ready for the next one? All right. Let's get back to my, nope. There we go. Okay. The other thing I want to just mention, so there are specific applications out there, Edpuzzle, Quizlet, GeoGebra. These are just some examples. And these applications actually have shared a classroom built into them. So don't be surprised if you're in a tool like Edpuzzle, which allows you to add a video and add questions to it. And then on the upper right-hand corner or somewhere on the page, you see something that says shared a classroom. So that functions the same as your extension is going to function. All right, so there are applications out there, Web 2.0 tools, that have actually embedded the shared a classroom extension right inside of their applications. And that's helpful for people who maybe can't add extensions, and maybe they're waiting for an administrator to add it for them, or I guess that's the only reason that you wouldn't have it. But if you can't add your own extension, just know that there are certain companies that have that embedded. Okay, so I'm just going to mention this because I think it's important. Google today announced a whole new line of Chromebooks, and some of them have mobile features in them. So some of these features may be coming to a Chromebook near you. One of the things that students can do, of course, is they can download the Google Classroom app, and you can see in this picture that the user interface is similar to what one would see, right? So here it is, there's a list of assignments to do, and then there's a little done tab. And so it's very, very similar to what you would see. But one of the things that's very different is the fact that in an assignment, so if you open up a Google Doc, for example, and the teacher's asking you to do tasks, you are actually able to use annotation tools. So when you open up that document, in a browser window of a mobile device, you're going to see a little pen on the upper right-hand corner, and it'll pop out. So if you click on the pen, you are actually able to annotate, okay, right on top of your work. It's something that right now only works on mobile devices. But I think it's important to note because I know that some of our students might use multiple devices when they're at home. They might use a smartphone, they might use a tablet in addition to their Chromebook. And so knowing that you have kind of that additional feature, I think is important. All righty. And now I'm going to tell you a little bit about Google Cast. Google Cast in education is fairly new. I want to say it came out in the last 6 months. And there's a cute little video that we can add to the description of this webinar so that you can watch it. But what it allows you in essence is the ability to be able to push information out to students and to have, actually I take that back, it allows your students to push information out to you. And so students can now cast their screens to a teacher device. And it really only takes a couple minutes to set up, but it can be a little bit tricky. So I am going to walk you through the process along with some tips on how to be able to have your students cast their screen. Google Cast does not require any additional networking software. It just requires teachers to have the Google Cast for Education app and students to have the Google Cast extension. And for those of you who have used Chromecast before, those are those little, they look like little flash drives, and you can plug them into your computer, or you can plug them into your monitor or your television monitor, or I think even like a projector. And you're able to cast, if you've ever been able to cast like a screen on your telephone or a screen on your computer to a projector or a monitor directly, it is the same extension. So what I've learned is that a lot of people get confused because they have their students download Google Cast for Education because it says education on it. But that's not going to work. So you just have to make sure the teacher downloads the Google Cast for Education app. You can also have administrators push the Google Cast app to teachers. And the Google Cast extension is what students need. Okay, so safe bet, you just give the Google Cast for Education app and the Google Cast extension to teachers, give them both, talking about the differences, but give them both. But for students, only give them the Google Cast extension. Okay, so let me demo this for you. And for those of you who are on a computer, you can go ahead and, if you have the ability to add extensions, you may as well do that. So let me go into, okay, this is my teacher account. So I'm going to go into the Chrome Web Store, and in the Chrome Web Store, I typed in Google Cast for Education. Okay, so remember, you are the teacher, so you are looking for Google Cast for Education, and you are looking for the app. Okay, so definitely use the filters on the left-hand side. I already have it. If you don't have it, then you're going to click on Add to Chrome. Okay, and because I have it already, I can just launch the app from here. Okie doke. So I have to name my receiver or my Google Cast for Education app, my instance. So for those of you, again, familiar with like a Chromecast or some other little device at home where you're able to cast your computer screen, you know that you actually need to name that particular device so that whoever's trying to cast to it knows what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set it up as room 01. A lot of people do this. Teachers will just use their room number. Okay. And I've got some checkoffs here: automatically full screen, new presentation settings. So if someone casts a screen, it will take over the whole entire monitor screen. You can send usage statistics to Google so that they can help make Cast better, because they'll be able to see if it knocks off and it doesn't work. And you can say display background images from the web. Okay, so if I wanted to display, let's see, if I wanted to display the Google search bar, let's say. Okay. Actually, let me display this one. CTL. There we go. all right, then that could be the background image that shows up on the screen while it's waiting for students to cast. So I'm going to use the receiver name, room 301, because that's my classroom. And I'm just going to check all of these things off, including I'm going to set a background image. Okay, and then I'm going to just click on save. Let's see if this works. Okay, it's chugging along, but it did it. And I can see that it's loading my receiver. And there's room 301. And it has my name in the middle. And there we go. Okay, so in the background, I'm showing the CTL Nevada Ready 21 site. So that's kind of a cool thing that you can do. Okay, so it's 7:02. It's Tuesday, January 24th. And I've got two buttons on the right-hand side here. One is share and one is settings. If I click on settings, I'm going to see the same settings as I had before. And if I click on share, this is where I, as a teacher, get to type in who has access to actually cast to my screen. Alrighty, so it's just taking a little bit of time to load. As with all technology, we're very patient. There we go. Okay, so notice what it says here. It says that I can add people and that anyone that I add will be able to see when the receiver is online, right? So remember, your receiver is called 301. So this means that anyone who you allow to see the receiver is going to be able to, at any given time, perhaps it's another day, click on their Google Cast icon in their browser bar and then be able to cast their screen. So I am going to just put my cursor inside of that little section, and I can see that I've got all my Google classes that show up. Okay, so if I wanted to, if I wanted students to be able to share presentations with me, for example, in the old days, and I talk about old days as if it was 100 years ago, it's the way we do it now, right? Before this lovely app was invented. Normally what I would do is I would have students come up to the front of the room and plug in their Chromebook and display their presentation. Or I would have them just share their presentation with me. Of course, you can do that too. But using Google Cast makes it a little bit easier. So I can decide that I want to share it with a classroom, right? So let's say that this is my third grade class. Let's say it was period 1, right? For middle school teachers who have periods instead of full day classes. I could actually allow students to be able to see this receiver, all the students in my grade 3 class, okay? And I can say teacher can present, students can request, right? So that's what I'm going to allow them to do. And I'm going to click on add. And then I'm going to click on save. But what I'm also going to do is I'm also going to just type in the name of a student, okay? If I wanted to do that individually, I could. And I could say that they could request to present, and that's fine. Okay, so I can either pick an entire class or I can just type in the name of an individual student. And you see how it says groups. I've already set, well, I don't think it's going to show up. My third grade group. Nope, I'll take it back. I don't see it. It says emails, groups, and classes, but I don't see the ability to type in groups unless it's just taking a long time to load. So I'm just going to click on save. Okay, so I've given access to my entire third grade class, and I've also done individual access. And then on my other computer, I've got my student logged in, and I'm going to have her click on the cast button. And I'm going to have her cast to, there we go. So I'm going to have her cast her entire screen. And in just a moment, you are going to see a Google document. Okay, so I'm going to get a cast request. I'm going to accept it, right? So the teacher doesn't want to have like everybody trying to take over the screen, right? So you want to set it up so that the student requests, and then you can decide whether you want to give them access or not. And here it is. So I've got 2 computers set up. This was an assignment, so let's say I asked Miss Bianca Martini to go ahead and show me her assignment, and you know, because I noticed that she was off task, and I can see that in the last half hour all she did was type in 1 sentence and input a picture. And I know the next time that I tell the class I'm going to have presentations and just going to call randomly, she'll probably do a better job. But this is kind of cool. I mean, look at this. This is like so quick. So once you get the hang of it, and it's really not complicated, you just have to follow the steps in order. You can have kids presenting from their seats constantly, and not just presentations, but awesome resources that they're sharing. So it really lends itself to a very active classroom, where the teacher isn't bogged down with technology or wires or please share that with me, or so I'm going to stop there and see if anybody has any questions.
Blanca, we do have some questions, and
Okay.
the first one is I was thinking about this one. Could a teacher from home, if they were also co-teaching in the Google Classroom, broadcast from home to the students?
Oh, I only wish. So you have to be on the same network.
Okay.
So you have to be on the same SSID connected to the internet.
She said darn, so I
But don't discount it. So whoever you are, there is a feedback, those feedback buttons that Google puts on their tools. And I think you noticed it before. It's on the bottom here. There's a feedback button. And we can even say, we would like to have the ability, right, to cast from outside the network. How about that?
that's a good one.
All right.
The other question was, how do you stop sharing?
How do you stop sharing? So there was
Yeah.
a little X. I don't know if you noticed it, so let me do it again. I am going to, request access. And on the upper right-hand corner, I'll see it in just a moment. Okay. So let's say it's time for somebody else to present. All I have to do is click on the little X. Okay. So I can just say stop, and I can grab my my screen back. Oh, and look at that. They've started a chat with me. So they're really looking for your feedback. Does that help?
Yes, that was got it right on. And I would say that there was a question about needing extensions, and yes, the students need to have the extension.
Yes. Yep. And that's easy. That's easily done. So if your students are not allowed to add their own extensions, then you'll want your Google Apps administrator to do that. They can do it very quickly and across the whole school. Or if they're allowed to add their own extensions, you can just have them look for the Google Cast extension, but be very, very clear with them that it's the Google Cast extension and not the Google Cast for Education app.
Perfect. We kind of got all the questions there in that round.
Great. All righty.
Hi, Blanca. This is Amy.
Yes.
I might have missed this one, but this goes back to the classroom part. Is there a specific way when you're in a class or when naming assignments to students that makes it more useful or organized, like using group 1 nouns, verbs, or that just depends on how the teacher wants to just set that up for herself?
So I can share a couple of the ways that I've seen assignments, I guess, configured, for lack of a better word, using different configurations. So sometimes teachers like to create assignments and keep track of assignments either by date or by number. So when they're creating an assignment, they may start by saying number 1. And then they say, today's due now is blah, 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 right? So that's one way, is that if you've got 4 different quote unquote assignments, so to speak, for students to do during a class period, you can number them number 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So that kids know to stay on target, so that they're following the numbers. The other way is to really take advantage of the topics and always start by having the kids go to their do now, right? So this could be, if this were a do now or a bell ringer, I could create a topic called, do now, and make sure that students always knew that when they came into class, that they would always look at the topics on the left, and that the do now, oh look, I did it in 2 different ways. I spelled it differently both ways, that they would look at their do now first, followed by, maybe lesson objective of the day with the date, and then lesson activity. And so, if you had 3 topics, do nows, lesson objectives, and activity of the day, then you could teach kids to kind of follow that pattern. I think it's really important that when we're in our classes, that we don't just kind of make up our own structure. I think if you're able to collaborate with other teachers and everybody's doing the same thing and following kind of the same structure, it really helps the students kind of, if I'm in my math class, I know I'm always going to do now first, then my objectives, then my lesson activity. It's like a pattern. And over time, that forms a habit. And over time, I think that just that allows the student to really understand and know what they're doing and kind of stay on track, if that helps. So
yeah, that makes total sense, because you have different periods, and then you have 100 assignments within that period.
Right.
So I know in my history of taking courses, sometimes a professor would say, it would be 1.1 or 1.2, so it means period
Right.
1, second assignment,
Mm-hmm.
1, third assignment. So
That's a great idea.
to answer
Yeah.
Susan's question, like you said, it could be a collaborative thing with classroom, or it could just be depending on the teacher.
Right. Right. And I really would recommend as much as possible, if you're going to do something, and it doesn't have to be the whole school, right? It could just be the 6th grade team that comes up with a certain way of, a naming convention for assignments that every child that goes into any classroom in the 6th grade kind of understands.
Good idea. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So I think that's all for right now. If there aren't any more questions, then I can share one more kind of fun fact if there aren't any other questions. Classroom roster sync. Okay. So one thing that I kind of wanted to share, but I wasn't sure if this was already being taken care of by Google Apps administrators, but I will mention it, is something called roster sync. So for schools that are using Google Classroom, where teachers are having to input or invite students individually to every class one by one, there is a tool called Roster Sync, and it's an add-on for Google Sheets. It's something that the domain administrator has to do, right? So it's not necessarily the coaches, because I don't think the coaches are domain administrators, but it's something you would ask your Google Apps administrator to do. And what they can do is actually go into Google Sheets, add the Roster Sync add-on. And by the way, this was created by New Vision's Cloud Lab. So they have an awesome site that has a lot of Google scripts that they've created over the years. And what that does is it allows the administrator to upload a roster of students by class and automatically create Google Classrooms with the students already in them. So it's something that if you're using, and I don't know what student information system everybody's using, but let's say it's Infinite Campus, there are rosters that come out of the scheduler in Infinite Campus, and your Google Apps administrator could use this tool to actually import teacher classes with the students, so that when every teacher in August walks in and they go to Google Classroom, they can actually see all of their classes with their students already in them. So I mentioned that that's something advanced, but it's really for your Google Apps administrator. But if you are having to do a lot of this manually and set up your Google classes with all your students, I think it's definitely something to mention, and I think it's something that would save a lot of time.
That's perfect. I don't see any other questions.
Okay. And like I've done in the past, I just want to remind everybody that you can go to google.com/edu/classroom to see how other schools are using Google Classroom and how they've helped to transform their learning. It's a place where you can get links to resources for Classroom. There is a Google Plus community, and there's all kinds of resources for Google, for the G Suite in general. But certainly if you want to see how other schools are using it, and perhaps you're not using it yet, or you have some teachers who are a little nervous about using it, you can send them to that website. There's also a fantastic support center for Google Classroom. Everything that I went over today can be found in the support center. Okay, so that's support.google.com/edu/classroom. And then, of course, there's a product forum. So, especially for those of you who've been using Google for a while, you'll find that sometimes there are things that happen, right? And you go, oh my gosh, is this just me, or is this happening to everybody? So you could go to the product forums and actually ask questions. And there are people in the community, people like you and I, who kind of hop in there, and every now and again will answer questions, as well as the Google team will be in there answering questions. So you can see right here, there's a bug that somebody noticed, that videos weren't playing in Google Classroom. And this is a great place to be able to see, oh gosh, it's not me, it's actually something that Google is fixing. Alrighty. So I'm going to give it back to you, Amy.
Okay. Let me get my screen back up here. Into my presenter mode. Thank you everyone for joining in. There we go. Sorry about that. Thank you. All right. Can everybody see that? Presenter view.
Got it.
Okay. Sorry about those tabs up there. Thank you, Blanca, and thank you everyone for joining. I do want to mention something that is coming up, and it's going to be a part of the grant, and it will be rolled out soon. It's a classroom management that's called NetTop, and some core features that I'll just mention. Stephanie, with your follow-up email regarding this webinar, regarding their webinar, will be February 15th at 1 o'clock. And you will get that in a follow-up email from this. Some of their features are, you can see every student's screen. You can share the teacher's screen. You can push your URLs out to the students' Chromebooks all at once. You can block and filter their web. It saves time, keeps teachers in control of the class, and keeps students on task. Why use NetTop? You can view the screen fully, not just the active browser tab, which is great. So students can play videos and games outside the browser. Also, Android apps will run outside the browser as well. You have access to fully lock their screen, not just the active browser tab. So that's a lot of control teachers will have. You have real-time feeds as well. You can configure the URL list as a whitelist as well. You have the ability to share the teacher and student screens with individuals or for the whole group to be more efficient. And I'm trying to think, another key point is, well, the NetTop design, it's easy to learn and use, and that is why we have chosen to partner up with them. So again, write the date down, February 15th, NetTop at 1 o'clock, and it will come up in a following email. You can also view the recording of today's webinar with the follow-up email as well, and in our library of resources on the nr21.ctl.website, and they will be posted within at least 48 hours. You have our email up there, you have Blanca's email up there, and you can email us or call us at any time. And I think we're about time's up if there's nothing else. Other than that, on behalf of Blanca and CTL and our presenters, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.